Finkley plan for Australia's energy future.
And the announcement of a new national gun amnesty came, well, amid another shooting in the United States, this time targeting a Republican congressman, which has reignited the gun debate there, of course. Well, to discuss the week in politics, we're joined by Senator David Leyonhjelm. Senator, thanks for your company.
Good morning.
Let's start with the gun amnesty that the government has announced. It says the amnesty has been prompted essentially because of recent terrorist incidents, the ongoing threat of terrorism. Are they right to bring in the amnesty?
It doesn't bother us licensed legal gun owners. It makes no difference to us. It's designed to get illegal guns out of the community. We're a bit cynical about that sort of thing though, because at the end of the day criminals and terrorists are not going to hand their guns in to the government and say, oops, sorry, I've got an unregistered gun, I really don't want it anymore, here, take it. So it creates a perception of doing something without actually doing anything, of any material value. If you want to buy an illegal gun, you can buy an illegal gun. It's like drugs, you ban drugs and still no problem getting them. And what it does also is creates this perception that those of us who are licensed and have legal guns are somehow part of the problem, which of course we're not. So we're a bit cynical about it, but at the end of the day, what it will do is get grandma's dusty old rusty gun that stuck in the back of the cupboard that's never going to do anybody any harm. That'll get handed in, and some idiot minister will stand up and say, "Oh, look at this! Guns are off the street," which of course they never were on the street. And
so you don't believe that there is an issue with a rise in illegal firearms in the community?
Well, I don't know that it's getting any bigger. There are a lot of guns that are not accounted for in registries. The Australian Crime Commission talks about 260,000. The closer figure is probably more like 3 million. Now this is guns that were never registered in 1996-97 when registration of shotguns and rifles came in.
How did you come up with that figure of 3 million?
It wasn't me that calculated it, but somebody associated with one of the gun organisations did a calculation based on the number of imports and deducted from that the number that had been registered and the number that were handed in as part of the surrender process, and the difference is somewhere between 3 and 6 million. Now if you allow for a good number of them getting rusty and not being operable and things like that, and the numbers are a bit rubbery because import figures were never maintained all that accurately, I reckon 3 million is probably close to the mark.
So how do we then come to terms with this?
Well, they're not doing anybody any harm. The guns that do cause harm are pistols, and they're the ones that criminals want. And they've been registered in Australia since the 1930s. So, and there is a pool of them around, but they're not going to get handed in. And they're the ones that the bikie gangs use and the bank robbers use and Curtis Chang was used against him. That sort of crime, that's not going to be affected by an amnesty. And at the end of the day, it's a policing exercise, it's a policing job. The police have to catch the guys who are doing the criminal activities, not chase the guns.
In the face of an ongoing terrorist threat, do you maintain that people who know how to use a gun should have them available to use? That's been your argument in the past.
Yeah, I've used that, yes. Well, Australia is rather unusual in not allowing you and me and normal, everyday people to have the means of practical self-defence. It's quite an issue. So, first of all, I think non-lethal means of self-defence, pepper sprays, mace, personal tasers, those sorts of things, should not be restricted. They're now treated as prohibited weapons. You can get arrested for having them, even if you've got somebody stalking you and threatening you and all that sort of stuff. If you arm yourself with a pepper spray or mace, you're the one that's likely to get arrested. I think it's profoundly wrong. So non-lethal means of self-defence should not be restricted. Most countries they're not. Guns for self-defence, where you can envisage, Malcolm Turnbull's bodyguards when they're off duty, police who know they're trained how to use firearms, not all that well trained in many cases, but at least there's some attempt at training them. People like me, I've been in a pistol club for 30 or 40 years. I know how to use a pistol extremely well.
But if you know how to use a pistol, it doesn't mean you'll use it responsibly.
Well, you're suggesting that I can use it responsibly when I go to a pistol range and shoot in a competition, but as soon as I leave the pistol range, I'll stop being responsible.
Well, that may be yourself, but are you confident every Australian who knows how to use a gun would use it responsibly?
Well, no, because we have a licensing system, and if you don't behave responsibly, you lose your licence. I don't have a problem with that. And I wouldn't want people who don't know how to use guns and who aren't responsible to be carrying them around for self-defence. And that in most countries, Czech Republic, for example, they allow you to carry a gun for self-defence, but you can lose that right. So if you have a history of violence, made threats, anything like that, you can lose that right. And I think that's the right way to do it. Some people are not responsible with a gun. That's why you have licences.